Good morning, everybody. It's David R. Becker here with BeckerArt, and today's is demo with David, right? And so here is I'm going back to some of my musician paintings that I haven't done for a while. I love doing musicians playing an instrument and trying to make it look like they're moving. And so I haven't done one in a while, and so I thought I need to do one this week. And so I found this image, and let's get going. This is going to be fun. And if you notice here on this side right here, that it's very not that many colors in it. It's very monochromatic in a way, but we're gonna color it up a little bit more than that, and we're just gonna see what we can do. So let's go to our tabletop and get started here. And my palette is all dirty. So do I have all my lights on? It seems pretty dark. Let me see one thing. I think my one light is not. I should have checked this before. There we go. Okay, so we're going to do our lights first, but there's not many lights in here. If you look at the background, basically the window. Wow, we have a lot of different lighting in here today. I'm not sure why. So we have the window in the back and the piano keys here. That's light, the window, and maybe on the floor here a little bit of light, but everything else is pretty much dark. And so I know that it's like a white wall. People will think that, okay, that's a white wall. But if you look at it closely, it is a white wall, but it's in darkness. It's not as bright. And so that's one of the things with this watercolors. When we put our washes down, we'll make it look like that. But because it dries 20% lighter, then it's going way too light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the windows first, do the piano keys, and then the floor, get that color that I want, and then I'm probably going to use an orange warm background and a cool foreground. We're going to try something new here. We're going to try a turquoise orange kind of combination, and we'll see how that works. Like on Sunday morning, I always try things, and it's me practicing and showing you how I practice it. So, good morning, Pat and Sherry. Thanks for coming by this early morning. And so let's just get going here. And so I'm going to wet the background windows, like the windows. I want to put like a little bit of something out there, and so I'm gonna make this kind of orangey. I can clean out my palette. And by the way, I'm really loving my palette that I built, and I bought a bunch more of these little pans, and a bunch more plexiglass, white plexiglass, because they're so easy to make. And I love the fact that I can make them any size I want and arrange them any way I want. And if you want to know how to make this palette, go to my YouTube channel, which you're on right now, and look up build your own watercolor palette. All right, so let me just get a little bit of orange in here, and I'm just gonna put this up in the background, like there's something outside the window. This is gonna be really light. Looks like a couple of buildings out there. I'm making just a warm orangey color. And over here too, just a little really light. And also the hair, of course, is going to be red, and so I'm going to give it a little bit of lightness. Lightness, is that a word? Lightness? A light wash of orange and jaune number 2, which is like a flesh tone orange. I'm just going to put that around her head. She is actually dark, but she has this little rim lighting of this really beautiful orange. And then bring it down here. So again, it's my lights, step 1, and the BeckerArt 3 step. And I'm using watercolors, and I always say that I use gouache on it too, which I sometimes do. But gouache I don't use an actual gouache that I buy. I make my own gouache by just using white with some of the pigment. And then I also have my gouache palette, which if I really want to use the gouache, it really covers up really well. So, and I can actually use like a watercolor too. But right now we're just getting our lights. We're putting our lights in here, and I'm going to do an orangey background and a teal foreground. And we're not going to make it as like the background's very stale and nothing there. I'm going to go a little crazy with my brush and maybe spatter a little bit and just make it look more like she's playing. I like movement in my musicians, like they're actually playing the piano, and so I like to give movement to when I do these musicians. Or I did do a singer not too long ago, but It's fun. I enjoy doing these. Okay, now I said I was going to use turquoise, and so I'm going to use a little turquoise here. I'm just going to put on a little bit of light turquoise to see what it'll look like. So I'm going to put a little turquoise in the foreground. Just see, you really can't mix it with yellow because then it'll turn green. So, which it is a blue-green, but I just want it to be more of a blue than green. A blue-green. I know it seems kind of weird, but just stay with me. See what we're going to see how it goes. And then again, ask questions. Everybody's here. Hey, Karen from West Virginia. Thanks for stopping by. And so we're just gonna, again, I'm starting with my lights. Getting my lights in here. You notice I didn't wet the whole paper. I'm going to do that when I go for my step 2, which is all the large mediums and darks. That's step 2. Step 1 is the color scheme and your lights. Basically all your little lights and keeping the white of the paper where you need the white, or putting masking fluid down, or like I do lately is putting white paint down afterwards. Her hands have some, have light on them, where her face does not have light on them. She's silhouetted against the window, but her hands are nice and warm and light, and so I'm just going to put that over it right now. Getting my lights all covered up. Yeah, I want my lights and the color covered up already, so that when I put my darks on top of them, I don't need to worry about putting a little space of warmth. Put a little pink in there, and so this is the light parts of the hand. So, and I could keep some of the hand white, like the dress is black, but look at the dress is black, and so, but on the edges, the light is wrapping around, and so it becomes like a gray. And I can put that gray down right away, or just leave it, leave it white to the paper too. The keyboard is my lightest light, and the windows are my lightest light, and the floor back here is my lightest light. And so those are the things I just got to make sure I keep. And like the little trimming on the piano, those whites, I'm just going to put them in, or try to paint them around a little bit, but they're just long lines, and I can do that with white paint later on too. So now that's my lights basically. I don't see any other lights that I need to really put in. So let's just go into our large mediums and darks. Let me just put in a few of these lights here. This piano is really reflective of the hands here. It's reflective of what's right below that. And then top of her pants here, have a little bit of warmth. And again, I'm using turquoise and orange for this particular scene. I want to learn how to use turquoise better. I've seen a lot of artists using turquoise outside, and I really love the look of that combination of colors. So even though this is very monochromatic, this picture, doesn't mean you have to do it that way. You don't have to follow those colors. Just follow the value pattern. And the value pattern is those darks I just talked about. That looks like it's a light area, and there's no paintings on the wall or anything. There's a little crevice right there. But I'm just going to make it a dark, because that way the window will look really vibrant and bright. And so let's do that right now, because I'm ready to do my middle tones. And I'll make them really like darker than they are in the photo, because you have to make it look wrong to make it look right. It has, when it looks right when it's wet, then you did it wrong, because it has to be 20% darker than you want it. I didn't wet it first. I'm going to wet it as I go along, and so I'm just kind of taking this really ugly brown. I mixed an ugly brown, but let's put a little bit of this orangey. This is light red from Holbein, which is more of a terracotta or a burnt sienna kind of color. So I didn't go around that the cover of the piano. I'm just going to go right through that, because that I can wipe out. My lessons this week were a lot about, in my classes and in my newsletter, were all about rubbing out. And rubbing out is not a bad thing to do. Rubbing out is okay. Now here I'm putting a little bit darker in. And see when it comes to dry how it becomes textured. I don't want that textured exactly right there, so I'm just going to wet it as I go along. As I get closer to the window, I'm going to get a little bit more vibrant with the color, a little bit more orangey. I'm still going to try to keep it darker than I am thinking. And then there's this rim lighting around her, so I can just do that right away. Top of the piano is actually darker. The piano's darker than the background, so why not just go right into the piano, right? Don't go around stuff that's going to be darker later. Now she has this beautiful hair, red hair coming down here. And so I'm just going to kind of leave it light, white. Bring this down. I'm using all my like warm oranges and reds and letting it be in there and maybe spatter in there a little bit. Give it a nice texture. Give it a really neat texture. I don't need to put that curve in the wall either. I really don't need to do that exactly. Maybe hint at it a little bit. And right here gets a little bit darker because there's the edge of the wall. Yeah, by putting texture in, it gives it a little bit of movement. It's like it says movement because, you know, it's dirty and it's like you're going in there and something moved around, and that means out of focus. It's blurry, and so that's how I get my look of like movement. Now then there's the window here. I should have drawn in the hair a little bit so I could see where I can go around. And this gets really light right here and go right into her dress because that's going to be darker. Always know what's going to be darker and lighter because then you can go through those things. You don't need to go around those things. Black, purple. Make the wash beautiful. Somehow make the wash your wash. How do you make your wash beautiful? Do you scrub out later? Do you put cellophane on top of it? What's the effect you want to get in a big, large area wash? Do you want granulation? So use granular paints. Now this piano's going to be darker than all that, but I'm just going to stop right there and get this side really quickly. Now these windows are kind of soft edged and blurry. Either I go lighter so I can make them hard edged, or I wet it all. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make it a lighter color and make it a hard edge. So that's another way of making it look soft edged, is don't get as much contrast in your wash. Hey Judy from Greenville. Let's see if there's any questions. So then this over here also has some lines going down, and you make it a little bit more orangey so that it looks like, it's warm and it kind of is all in the same area. You can rub out a little area here. I'm just going to take out a little bit of the light. That's another thing you can do. You can rub out, after you put it down, you can rub out a little bit and it'll give you a lighter line. Do that over here. Oops, almost my coffee. By the way, cheers guys, cheers. Alright, so then alright, let's see. Alright, so the background here, a little bit darker. And some people would do the girl first, or the piano player a figure first, because they always feel like, well, if I don't do the figure right, then I don't have to do the rest of the painting. But don't do that, because she's the darkest of it, and so you really have to put these lights behind her first. You can't do the darks or lights after you get the darks. I mean, you could, but it's just not the best way of doing it. And what if I put a little turquoise on over here? What happens when you put turquoise into that color? Well, that looks kind of cool. Should have done that over here, but this is too late now because I lost the shine. And as soon as you lose the shine, it's not wet enough to float your pigment and let the pigment float. So only do that when it's wet enough. Putting different colors in, and then there's this beautiful light around the hair. Go right into the body. Don't worry about the body. It's darker. And like I said, make it about 20% darker than you wanted. And even put about 20% more pigment down than you think, because most people just are tinting the paper and they're not really getting a big amount of pigment in there. And that's the more pigment you have, the less it's going to turn lighter. So then it gets lighter as it's on the floor. Go more toward the orange again. Don't worry about the dress. Excuse me, don't worry about the dress. The dress will be coming in later. And then there's the chairs right there, and then we have these little lines from the window. This is a little bit of the we have lines coming this way. And that's the light of the window shining in, right? And look at how dark it looks right now. But this is all going to dry lighter. All this stuff is going to dry so light. And it's the hardest part for my students to understand, and myself included, to make it darker, make it look wrong, so that it becomes looking right when it's done, when it's dry. Here I'm putting a little bit of the light, pulling it out. Remember, like I said, pulling out and rubbing out is a good thing. You can get some really neat effects by just pulling out some of the paint while it's wet, and then it'll just give you that little bit of light and a soft edge too, because it is still wet, but you're just pulling pigment out to get the look. I could put in the things, but that's details. I'll do that later. Alright, and I should get the same color behind here. This is pretty light back here. But then I want to go to this turquoise. And the piano is not turquoise. It's going to still look very dark and brown and stuff, but it has reflections of the coolness in the foreground. And her dress is going to be more turquoise than black, you know, because I want that look of that color. And look at this lighting in here. This is terrible. Oh, no, that's the blanket or my towel. All right, and so this is my color lightness back here. A little orange back here. Rim lighting is orange that I want to put on here. So her dress is a large area, and so it is a dark, but it's step 2 is the large mediums and a dark. So I'm going to do the dress right away. I'm going to do the piano right away before I get into the intricate small detail darks and lights, like her face. Her face is actually part of like the hair and stuff. That'll all be dark. But because that's your center of interest, along with this being secondary, or actually this whole area is the center of interest, her and her hands, because she's looking at her hands basically. So that's like the whole area of interest. I like to call it area of interest instead of center of interest, because that way it's not a thing, it's more of an area. Good morning, Mary. The colors in my palette are the same that I've always used, and the only difference one now is turquoise. Turquoise, horizon blue. I have all the blues, and in the new year I'm going to be putting labels on everything so that you'll know exactly what colors I'm using in the beginning. I'm going to put this palette on one of the things, and I'm going to show you all the colors I'm using. And we're all going to start with a limited palette too in the new year, instead of having so many colors on my palette, which I don't use half of them, you know, I just only use about half of them. And so let's get this large area of dark in here now. Let's do her dress. I said I was going to do her dress, right? Okay, I can stop right here, and then I can do her neck, which is lighter, but let's just do her dress because it's a big area. And we're going to start out really dark, and we're going to just put down water. And I said it's going to be turquoise, so let's just start out with the hard edge around her. And you don't see the difference between where her arm is and where her chest is and her back is. It's all one big area. It's actually black in the image, but I'm not going to make it just black. I'm going to make it a beautiful wash of all kinds of different colors. And it actually goes right into her hair, which is really dark there too. But I'm just going to do her dress right now and just see what I can do. So I'm wetting it as I go along. Now this is not going to be the color. What I'm going to do is I'm going to like just throw some color into the wash. I call this a wash because it's very wet, a lot of pigment, and it's going to be a wash. And then we'll do the red on the back, on her back, or worm. And I can tell that the arm would be right about here, so you can kind of get the look of where the arm is. And I can add a little bit thicker pigment if I want it to look like it's shining from the back. I'm getting purple here, a little purple. And as I'm going towards her hand up here, towards the piano keys, I'm going to make this warmer. Actually make it really orangey. And also, I'm going to kind of keep it a little blurry, because if her hands are moving, then it should be blurry, right? And so if I get a little bit of that blurriness in there, that'd be awesome. I'll take a little bit of that turquoise, put it in the shadow side. Let it be blurry. Don't have to make it look all tight. There, I'm just going to put a little bit of a wisp in there. It's some kind of cloth that comes down. See how that's not just black, it's turquoise, it's purple, it's orange. I'm putting on the edges here a little bit more orange, a little bit, just drop it into the water. Drop it in there. Take my turquoise, put it in on here a little bit. I use the purple and the red, the light red, which makes it kind of a brown. I'm trying to follow the form a little bit, but not exactly to a T. You know, I'm not going exactly like it is. I'm just, here's the leg. It's really dark on the edge there. So I'm again go with some purple here and turquoise together. That's the front of the leg. And this gets really dark right here. There is a little bit of a section where it's not dark. With a little lighting happening there. And then goes down there a little bit. This will be a little bit too light right now, but that's okay. We always make it darker. You always make things darker. And I'll put some orange in there too. There's the train. All right, and so that I'm going to put right into the piano too. Since I've got this color and it's dark and it's nice, I'm going to go right away and put this part, because it's reflecting right here, into the piano. And that way I've got there's the leg right there of the piano. And then I've got to put a little bit of more turquoise in there, so it's reflecting a little bit of that. You know, see how it's not so perfect, the washes? It's not like, I like a little bit of brushwork in there to make it a little more like a painting too. This is not a photograph. Though, I mean, if you're going to do like a look of a photograph, then yes, you're going to have to go a little bit more slowly and get the exact edges, hard edges, soft edges. And you have to get exactly what you see in the photograph, but I'm making it look more like a painting where it's not, everything is so perfect. Here we get some orange back here. Use the orange back here because what I'm doing is shining from the window, the orange, but then it goes to a shadow part. And that can be a cool color. It looks like this is really, really dark also. Almost black. But I don't like using just solid black if I'm not doing a monochromatic kind of picture. I actually chose this to be more turquoise and orange. So if that's what is on your mind, then that's what you do. You don't follow the photo, you follow what you want to do. The colors that you chose as your complementary colors. And what I chose from the very beginning, I said I was going to use. And so that's what you got to do. Wherever there's a dark, you decide on what that dark color is going to be. Because in the picture, everything is just basically black and brown and a little bit of orange, and so it's more monochromatic. I'm making it more colorful. Let's get the front of the piano now, and the front of the piano. On this back here, let's use a smaller brush now too, because I got to get in there. When you're doing a little bit more details and trying to get a little bit more detail in it, then you got to use a brush that fits the purpose. Because now this is really dark right here, so I'm just going to go across. And anytime I'm doing a rectangular shape, I use a flat brush. It's easier than using a round brush because you can get it in one brush stroke. And this edge has a nice light to it. Goes back here, it's really dark. Now it's wet, right? And so, like I always say, once it's wet, don't be afraid to float some other colors in there. It's all about floating your pigment. That's a wet wash now. So why wouldn't I put some nice orange in the front here? And just let it float in there. Just let it float, making those nice, beautiful edges, beautiful texture. When you put another, and then as it goes away, I'm going to take that turquoise and lay it down into the water here a little bit, the little turquoise there, and go into the top part of these of the lid of the piano. So I'm just going to wet this part then too. Now the edge of the piano up here of the lid is a little bit lighter, so I'm going to rub that out later. Not right now, not while it's wet, or while it's dry right here. Just going to bring that down. And inside there, maybe a little bit of orange. Have a little bit of orange in there, just to make it look like it's shining underneath, orangey. Now we're going to get the more detail of the piano, this little part here. She doesn't have sheet music because she doesn't need sheet music. She's such a good piano player, a pianist, and that she can do it without the notes. My first wash when I put it down is usually just pigment and water, and I don't care about what the color is, because then, now that it's wet, I can suggest something to that. You know, maybe it's reflecting, because this is a reflective surface, so maybe it's reflecting some of that turquoise from her dress. So I'm going to just put that there, and just reflect it in there. And just lay it in the water, let it float. Maybe this side section over here is a little bit more orangey, so you put that into the wash. And there's a bunch of reflections in there too, which I'll do later. Now let's do the under part here, the front of the piano, which I'm going to keep light first and go dark as I go along here. And there is like little symbols and the word. It's probably a Steinway, right? And so you can put that in there later. Here's her hand, reflection of her hands. And I'm going to make it really, really loose. I'm not going to make it so perfect. And the piano is very shiny, so you can get a lot of nice colors in there and lights and darks to show the shininess. Shininess is all just lights and darks. Top of her hand, we got to make it dark to show the light that I left there. So you're negative painting the hands in. Get a little bit of turquoise in here. And maybe in the front here a little bit more orange. I didn't look for any questions. I'd love to know all the colors. Okay. I work it wet when I want a soft edge. I work it dry when I want a hard edge. Very simple concept. Just keep it that concept where if you want a light edge, if you want a soft edge, you got to make it wet. You want a hard edge, keep it dry. And then when you do have the wet edge, the wet surface, then drop any color you want in there and work it. Work it so that you're doing the edge of these hands. Work it because it'll be a soft edge, but you can still make a line when it's wet in the wet. That's what I've been trying to teach all my students, is be able to work wet into wet and get that look of a soft edge so that it looks soft edge and it's blurry and out of focus. And this goes dark, and this is actually the keys, the black keys. And so I'm just gonna reflect the black keys into the back of this piano. And then we'll actually do the black keys. Then we'll just do each individual key here. Now they're a little bit gray. They're kind of gray because the light's hitting them, so they're not black. They're a little bit of gray. So I'm just going to put a gray across the top of that. And if they're shiny, they can even reflect some light on them too. And then the fronts here are very dark. That's where it becomes very black. And the hands are really dark, the fingers. Now I'll do that with the details. Okay, so those are big areas, right? They're still very, very large areas that I'm working. I'm not working too small. I am getting the edges of things that are small. Yeah, I can do that. Now let's do her head, because that's the part we're at right now. So that's the largest thing. So I'm going to take my smaller brush, and I'm going to get ready my small round, because when you're doing like hair and stuff, it's good to do as a round brush because it has a really fine point. And so I'll wet the whole head first, and I'm going to work it wet into wet. Now it does have a little bit of light around it, so I can wet it with a little bit of yellow in my brush, or orange. So as I'm wetting it, I put a little bit of that color that is on the surface. I put that right away in there. Flesh tone will be more warm, so I just take a warm color and put it over that. A little bit orangey. Her face is going to be really dark, but I still have to make it warm. So I'm just make sure her nose is not too big. I'm wetting it with the color. It's dry everywhere else, and I'm just going in here now, wet the surface. I don't have the exact color I'm going to use for that yet, but now I'm going to take my round brush, and she has a hook on her nose. Boy, I didn't do that right. So I put a little hook on her nose. And so now we'll go in and drop in the colors where I want them. You know, because it's going to be darker, but here in her cheeks is going to be redder. Use a little bit of more dark tones. Her hair is going to be really dark right there, but I'm going to go with some orange here. And again, I'm trying to get the overall value of it. I'm not trying to get the exact color and shape. Well, I am trying to get the shape of the outer edge. Yeah, you just definitely want to do that. I'm trying to pick up the color that I think the overall lightest part is going to be. And the hair is going to be really dark, so I'm just going wet into wet and just getting in there. Okay, lips red, so I'm just take a pure red in here. This is what's important here is the outer edge. The outer edge has to be perfect. I'm bringing that down to her chin. And then there's a dark that goes up like this, and so I'm going to make it really dark, like it's in shadow. And the back of her neck right here is really dark. So just let's make that, and this is her neck right here, so we're going to make that nice and dark. But warm, we'll make it a little bit warm. Then behind her ear is really dark. Her eyeshadow, so let's make that really dark. Let's put turquoise. Maybe she used turquoise eyeshadow. So then we didn't. It's not her eyebrow yet. It's supposed to be the overall color of her eye socket. See, I'm doing large areas, work large areas. The side of her nose should be a little bit darker too. It's all wet, so it's all going to bleed softly, so it's still all soft. Underneath her nose will be a little bit darker here. See now how good my round brush is? It has a really fine point. And I'm going to put a little bit of her hair in. That's really dark. And I do want it to be red, and so I'm going to make it a dark brownish red. And then a little bit of the hair coming down here. I'll do the edge of the ears, and I'll do the inside of the ear later when I can really do a lot of detail. Right now, let's just get the large darks now. And this dried already, so now I'm getting a hard edge. But that's okay. I have to get a little bit hard edge right here. I can always soften it later too by blending some water on it. Putting some water on it. Look how dark I'm getting. I'm going to get it dark, but the edge I want to have looking a little bit more orangey. because I want that to wrap around a little bit. So while it's wet, you just put that in there. Now she has this ponytail. And then just make this all dark. And I'm using purple to make my darks in here, because that with red and blue make a nice dark brownish color, and so purple is a good color to keep your warmth but still get your darks. Now this can blend right into her neck and into the dress, her hair. And then we'll do that nice, and we'll do the light part color first, the light red. This front piece hanging there, that's going to be done with this even smaller round brush. So I'm just going to get the big parts done first. And see, I'm going right into the dress. I don't want to see the difference between the dress and the back of her hair. I'm just going to let that be the same. And then down here, I need a really small brush, like a rigger. There's my rigger. So I'm going to use a rigger to make the hairs. The big parts are done, right? And so you get the little parts then. You go in there and get the small hairs that are showing. And I'm going to go first with a light color and then with a dark color, because there's a lot of orange right here. And so go with a light orange and make those hairs light orange. And you can draw that in exactly where that's going to be, where each hair is going to be in. And then this gets really dark. So I'm going to get back to your darks. So I'm going to use red and purple. Yeah, go a little slower and actually draw them in. Now the background is going to be a little bit, I'm going to do some details to that too. I just want things to blend. And look at how light this stuff got, you know, so, but if you don't go darker, if you keep this as your darkest dark, then that'll look like it's the same darkness. But since I've used a little bit darker in the hair, I'm going to have to make that a little bit darker now. I didn't put any turquoise in the hair either, so I got to do that a little bit. Let's put a little turquoise in there. Because that says that there's a shadow right there, because the shadow part are colored turquoise. Oh, I haven't looked for questions. Hey, Maria. All right, so let's go back to her hair. Let's get these little lines going. And this is detail now. I'm on step 3. This is step 3, the details. Her eye. Let's do the front of her head, her hair in the front. I'm just going to go slowly and just do this hair, let it go down in front of her face, and then wisp it a little bit. And then again, use a light orange color so that it looks like it's behind. Because there will still be a bunch of hairs that are lit up from behind, and so you want to make those nice and bright orange. So they're mixing in with the dark now, so you may have to do that with gouache later on over it. And now look at how dark this area is on a photo, and so it's darker and making a rim lighting, which I don't have. But I could go back over that and do that again later. Which I will. I will do that. Just get a little bit of that going back here. I mean, that's what's so neat about this picture is the rim lighting, right? I mean, she's rim lit around the outer edge of her, and so that's basically makes it look like the sun's behind her. And I don't have that happening right now. It's because this parts are too light. And so I'll have to go back in there and get those darks in there. Now let's do her bottom lip. So this is super detail now. And this is where your good drawing comes in. You know, knowing exactly how to do the drawing and get the drawing right. Or if you traced it, make sure that you traced it right. That you get the right angles and everything on these things, and the hair where it's coming down. Especially in a figure, that's where it's important, is making sure that you got the drawing right. Let's do the shadows in her hands, and I'm going to do that with totally orange, so they're like bright. I say that, and I'm not getting it though. I'm not putting in bright enough colors, and so my colors are kind of dirty, and so let's go in here with like pure orange and just try to get them look like they're really bright. And so I'm getting the shadow part of the fingers. See, I'm doing the bottom parts of the fingers. And then there's shadows that go back, and I'm going to make those just as orangey. And this goes a little bit darker, so I'm going to make these things a little bit darker as it goes towards the hand, the palm here. And again, if you have this drawn up, just trace what you have drawn. That's how come you want a good drawing when you start out, so you can just copy right underneath it and do exactly what you drew. It's easy to paint it then because you already drew it. And actually, if you draw it with a colored pencil, you can just put a little bit of water over it, and it'll be right away the exact color you want too. I still want to do that with watercolor pencil, where you sketch it in and then just put water over it and use the color of the pencil to just shade it, and just put a little bit of water on it, and you already have it. It's already done because you used the watercolor pencil to do the drawing. There's all these shadows going across there. This is the side of those keys. Now let's do the front of the keys, and that's just solid black. Oh, actually they're light, and in between the keys are dark. So this is in between the keys. The keys themselves in front are light, and then there's a shadow goes back. And then we have a really dark here in the front. See, now I can do the details. I can do as fine the detail as I want, to where if I want to make it look like a photograph, I can still do that because I can just go more and more detailed in it. Now this part where I lost some of the lights, that's where I can wipe it out or put white paint in there. And so I can take more of a, get yourself a scrubbing brush, or take an old brush that kind of worn the tip and then just cut it halfway out. You can make yourself a scrubbing brush. I'm just using a regular 1/4 inch, and watch this. With this paper, Stonehenge, I can really rub out really easily. So this light right here, watch this. I'm just rubbing it with a wet paint on my brush. A little bit, brush is wet, and I'm just pulling out the paint. And so that gives me a soft edge, and it also gets me back to the white of the paper. Now if you use too many staining colors, then you can't do this because it'll just, you know, it'll be stained, the paper. And then I'll do over here the darks, and the darks again over here are the dark of the, I'm going to take the turquoise a little bit here and do her dress by doing the front of the dress of her arm, and then it also shows that the back one. It shows the folds. And then this kind of all goes together right here and kind of becomes part of the dress in the front. So you don't have to show the whole dress, like where the arm exactly is going and where this is going, because then that makes it too hard-edged. By making some of these things soft-edged, it makes it a lot more like real. And also, if she's moving, you wouldn't, you know, it's nice to show movement with blurriness. Now she does have some earrings, but let me do her ear real quick. Let me do the inside of her ear, and so that's usually a little bit, the little hook right there. And the outer edge, or inside edge, earlobe, where that earring's going to be. And that I'm going to use white paint because it's a little bit too small to rub that out. Here we've got nice hairs coming down. And then remember I said I was going to do the background again? So let's do that really quick. First, let me get this a little bit darker over here. Let me just get that in, again, turquoise. Throw it into the wash. Once you wet something, you can throw it in there and just let it float. And there's a really dark right here. Edge of her dress here, with the shadows. I'm gonna make that really dark right there, but still turquoise. I see the edge of her leg and back here. Then there's a shadow goes across her lap. And then we've got the fold right here. And since this is a dress, there's going to be a lot of folds in this, but let's do this very... so it's out of focus. We don't want to make it too in focus, so we're just going to do the outer edge here a little bit. And let that just play and let this be loose and let this be... see if there's any questions. All right, let's get back to the background a little bit here. I think, oh, here's a chair. We got to do the chair. We didn't do the chair yet. The stool, I should say. The stool that she's sitting on. So we're going to make this a stool. It's going to be a little bit darker than the floor there. All right. What else we got going here? We got this part of the dress going back. All right, let's do the background again. Because the background should be darker in some spots. Let's rub that out a little bit. Remember I said to rub out, you just take a little bit of water on your brush and just rub it. You can also rub it against the ruler if you want it really, really straight. So what I'm doing is wetting it first. I'm wetting this whole little strip on the edge of the piano lid. And then I'll just take my brush and pull out the paint. Because then it loosens it up. Watch this, I'm just pulling out the paint. That's all I have to do for that. And now let's go back into my background and do the details. Like here, it's a little dark edge. And then there's a line for the wainscoting, or what do they call that? There's little lines on this door. Looks like it's some kind of door. And then there's little lines going across, and then the bottom of the door. It's a little bit darker. Now this probably should be more soft edged, but it's okay to have a few hard edges in there too. Let's get the window, little panes of window by putting in these little, make this a little bit darker around the edge here. I will go back in later on and put some white to make that rim lighting that I said before. Because I didn't really get it as much as I wanted to. But that's why it's good to be able to use the darker colors later. Let's use this pure orange. So I'm going to make this a little bit more pure. And go underneath her nose here and make a nice little light on the edge. And then there's a line that comes down here. I mean, there's a negative painting, but there also is times when I am tending to use the white, and I go back in to get the lights, highlights and stuff. And there's rubbing out. Like I said, you can always rub out stuff, but sometimes you can't rub back to the white of the paper, or it's just a staining color, or it's not as vibrant. So that's where I would use the white then. I'll come back in with just white paint and put that edge on there. then this is a little bit darker over here now. I'll use my big brush again when I'm doing big areas. And this guy kind of smoothed out, and so I'm going to go a little bit crazy with some of the technique. I'm just going to maybe give it a little bit more texture and movement. This also gets me make a little dark edge around, or light edge around the piano again, and get some turquoise back into the dark areas. Ooh, that was really dark. You know, it's wet now, and so I can get all that thing I did in the very beginning. You know, it's like you're doing the first wash again, but then just go in and just see what kind of texture you want. Do you want granulation happening? Then I might put a little bit more paint in there, granular paint. Making this a little bit darker so that it looks like a little bit more rimlet. Ooh, just got a cramp. Let's make this a little bit darker here so that it looks like the side of the piano. Soft edges when you wet it, right? Easy, easy, easy. Actually, this wall is facing this way, so it should be orange, not blue. And this should be the blue. Let's change that. Let's just try it. So this part should be a little bit bluer, with that line of the corner of the building, the wall. And then over here, I'm going to take a little bit of that blue out. I'm going to re-wet it, take it out, let it soak into my brush, put it onto the towel, and then take some nice orange back there, reflected from the window, and just let that float on top of the surface. Let's go a little bit darker blue here to make that edge, corner of the room. And a little bit brighter orange in this corner. And I gotta do some spattering, or just plopping down. It's all going to smooth out because it's wet in the wet. So, but sometimes I like to get a little texture in things. I'm going to cover up my towel. Where's my towel? Where's my paper towel? Hold on one second. I'm just going to cover up because I want to do some spattering. I'm just going to cover her up a little bit. And I want to just get a little bit more texture in there. So I spatter a little bit. Spatter some turquoise in there. A little brush stroke. See, just a little bit of texture. Alright, now her face is a little bit too light and her cheek is too light, so I'm going to put some red in her cheeks. A little bit darker. And her upper lip should be really dark. So I'm going to take some purple red, alizarin, and just put it in the bottom lip. We still got to do the rest of the window panes, so make them orange. These are not called window panes. These are the, I forget what they call these boards that go inside between the window panes. I made this a little bit shorter, so I'm going to put 2 down here instead of 1. Make it more, that way it's just not, it's more, not, it's just a little bit better numbers. 3 instead of 2. Alright, lastly, I'm just going to use some white paint and some opaques. Definitely didn't give this light enough orange for hair. So I'm going to take white. Take my white Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. I'm going to take that to get my whites in here. And again, if you don't like ever using white or gouache on your paintings, then make sure you use the correct masking fluid. Like use masking fluid and get those lights first. I'm putting white into my orange. And then I'm going to make these lines with white paint. The outer edge here, I'm just going to make that with white paint. Now this I could not enter into like TWSA because it has opaques in it. So it's not a true transparent watercolor because I don't have it all transparent. There's some opaques. Okay, but I like the look of this by putting in the white, and I can just do the edges lighter. No questions? All right, we're almost done here, guys. 3 more minutes. Oh, I forgot the earring. We gotta put an earring on her, which it shouldn't be white. It should be just a little bit lighter than anything else. There's the earring. And her eyes, shadow in her eyelids. Should be a little bit bigger. Her eyelashes should be a little bit bigger. Eyebrow, hairs, okay, I think that's pretty much it. Then I'll get the little highlights on the piano. Get all these little highlights. There's like right here, there's a highlight. These little lines that I put in before. So I'm going in there and getting nice little highlights on the piano itself. So the piano like this is so shiny, and so that's where it's fun to put in all these little whites. And some of it can be pure white. Let's put in a little name here, and that's where I'll put my name there. It's a BeckerArt piano. I'll just do Becker. And there's a light line here. So let's make this darker. Almost done, almost done. Let's see, 1 minute. You know how I don't do individual keys, but I can do a few little lines here and there, really thin. There's a little bit dark through here. One here coming right there. All right, I think there we have it. Any last questions? Do you have a favorite artist, David? Oh man, I have a lot of favorite artists. Artists that are alive, artists, masters that are passed away. But yeah, I have a lot of them. I think right now the one I'm following who's alive is Pete the Street, Peter Brown, for his plein air city scenes and his interiors. I love his interiors. So that he's one of my favorite ones right now who's alive and actually painting a lot. There's many, like I said, there's many artists that I follow and have painted like through the years. My mentor, who was Irving Shapiro, he was a great watercolorist. So I'm not liking the back of her dress right here. So what I'm going to do is one brush stroke right here. There we go, just to give it a turquoise in there. One last dark line. All right, I think that's it. I think we got her playing the piano, right? Thanks again for dropping by, guys, everybody, and hope you learned something. And again, this coming new year, we're going to be doing a little bit different part of my my channel is going to have what I'm going to do throughout the entire year is have everything organized, where you're going to see painting number 1 will be for beginners and stuff, and we'll talk about the materials, and then we're going to go to video number 2, which will be from basically like a whole class for the whole year, and we're going to start out from the basics, and we're going to go and get more and more complicated as we go along. It's going to be in one of the what do you call it, one of the, like, not folder but playlist. It'll be one playlist that'll be just for the whole year a lesson, and so you can get that for free, and that'll be what I'll be doing in the beginning of the year. All right, and we're going to be starting with one color. And so get my newsletter, and please like this video, and anytime you talk in the chat too, and it's all good. All right, so have a great rest of the weekend, and we'll see you on Thursday when we do our paint along.